Hi there. Welcome to Creating the Future's first web strategy meeting. We are very, very, very excited that we are all here. My name is Hilda Gottlieb.
I'm Dimitri Petropoulos.
And I'm going to be facilitating us through this today. I just want to check one tech thing with you guys. Are we blue?
Yep.
Yes?
Oh, you mean the lower third, or?
No, is the whole screen
how does the image look on us?
of Dimitri and me?
Beautiful.
You are not blue.
So.
There's many things running on this.
Okay, all right. I just want to make sure. When we start all of our sessions at Creating the Future, what we've realized is that the most important thing for people working together is that they know each other a little bit. And so what I'm going to ask each of you to do, and I will sort of point along the screen as we go here, is to just tell us your name, although that is on the screen. Tell us just a little bit about what brings you into this meeting, what your connection is, what you do in life, why this is of interest to you. And then if you could just share something that is going on in your life right now, that's awesome, so that we can know just a little bit about you. Why don't I start with Alex, who is at the far left of my screen. Alex Budak, tell us who you are, baby.
I knew I'd be first. Somehow I just had a feeling you'd be called on first. My name's Alex Budak. I'm coming to you from Stockholm, Sweden. I'm originally from San Francisco, California, but I live in Sweden, where I work at an organization called Reach for Change, where I get the great pleasure of running an incubator for 11 outstanding Swedish social entrepreneurs. So I spend the days coaching them on impact, on revenue strategies, and actually implementing a lot of the things that Creating the Future believes in. I'm also very proud to be a member of the Creating the Future board. An awesome thing happening is that next week I'll be escaping the Swedish snow and heading with my girlfriend to Lisbon, Portugal, and to Marrakesh, Morocco. I learned my lesson last winter that it's a long, long Swedish winter, and what better excuse to go to two beautiful places than in the middle of February, so why not? So I'm excited to get some travel in too.
Wonderful. Yay. Oh, how fun for you. How long will you be?
5 days in each place, so 10 days total.
Oh, wonderful. Annette Sandberg.
My name is Annette Sandberg. I live in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Spent many years professionally in Albuquerque, New Mexico. I'm from Oslo, Norway originally. Spent most of my time in child welfare doing training, development, that kind of a thing. And currently I do multimedia production, mostly for nonprofits, and I also do consulting in the area of learning and program effectiveness. And one thing that I am excited about, we just mostly finished renovating our master suite. Well, we created a master suite. We bought a serious fixer-upper on the north side of Pittsburgh, which is a wonderful, wonderful, vibrant area. So we're very excited about that. We're almost finished. Big deal in our world.
Well, it's a big deal in anybody's world.
You know, it takes like 5 times longer than you expect.
Yeah. Yeah. Cool. Very exciting.
It is.
Gail Valerian.
Oh, I thought I was on the far right, and I thought I had lots of time to get ready.
No, the world revolves around where we can see things in your perspective.
It's sort of like a roulette wheel that everybody has a slightly different arrangement of the faces. So.
Okay, fair enough. I'm not used to being on the far right of anything, so I'll just be happy to shift left. Thanks. So my name is Gail Valerian, and I am from Guelph, Ontario, Canada. Have been participating with Creating the Future since 2009, and am thrilled to be a member of the board. As a matter of fact, currently chairing the board of Creating the Future, and also my day job is working as a supporter, consultant, trainer, facilitator with community benefit organizations all over the place, and especially in my home community and communities around this area. What has been awesome for me, 2 things I think I'll just say quickly. One of them is that I also will be traveling to a nice warm place next week, and really looking forward to spending 3 weeks with good friends in Nicaragua, and that is, you know, everything is, all sights are set on the departure moment, but also when I return, I am so thrilled to be having the opportunity to co-facilitate with Hildy my first time co-facilitating a Creating the Future immersion course. So I'm really looking forward to that, and for so many reasons, but not the least of which is just to spend time with these two noodles live and in person, which is going to be great, but also to spend time with Annette, which I'm really looking forward to, and Susan, and a whole bunch of really great people.
Wonderful. Yeah.
And we're excited. We are excited.
I'm counting down the days.
Oh, good. One thing that I will ask is for anybody who is watching this, you can tweet to the hashtag CTFuture, and we want to know what's going on with you too. So chime in and just let us know that you're there. Sometimes it's hard for us to know who all is out there, and want you to be part of the meeting.
And we are monitoring the tweet stream ×3 here in the office,
Yeah.
so we're all watching what's going on.
Yep. Wonderful. Marlene Oliveira, you are next on our screen.
Hello. So yes, my name is Marlene Oliveira, and I basically help nonprofits with content. So I do copywriting as a consultant. I offer training. I run some blogs. I run a Twitter chat, and Twitter chat is how I found these two and how I discovered Creating the Future, the NPCons chat, where I found a home among fellow consultants serving the social benefit sector. That's what sort of connected me into the group and has kept me and has inspired me to launch a Twitter chat that Hildy is almost 2 years old soon, my chat. So that has been amazing. I don't have a warm, sunny getaway coming up, so I'm going to have to say that I'm excited about my new down coat and the fact that I walk everywhere, so the amount of snow that we've got right now does not bother me. So another Hildy hat tip to me being the winter Pollyanna around here, because people are grumbling and I'm just saying, yay, snow, and I'm warm. And I am actually pretty excited about that, because the people who are enjoying the snow, like my little kid and all the kids in the neighborhood, are jumping into piles of snow and are delighted, and I'm delighted by that.
Yay.
Wonderful.
Well, goodness knows there's a lot of snow.
There is.
Yeah, and snow is meant for kids. Kids are meant for snow and
Dogs.
snow and dogs and kids. And yeah.
That's right.
Peter, you are next up on our screen here. Peter Pan.
Great. Good morning, good evening, wherever you are in the world. Great to be on with all of you today. I'm Peter Panapento. Got involved with this. Hildy and I did a podcast together, or I helped provide the platform for a podcast for Hildy when I was at the Chronicle of Philanthropy as a managing editor, overseeing their website, and been involved with a lot of digital strategy and social media work over the years in that capacity. Left the Chronicle a while back and spent a short stint at the Council on Foundations building their philanthropy exchange platform and a few other things, and now I'm working on my own as a private consultant, doing a lot of work around digital and content strategy and business development, largely for groups that serve the nonprofit sector. So, I have a warm getaway coming up too, but it's for work. I'm going down to Orlando to actually do content for a conference of the Peer-to-Peer Professional Forum. So that's about as warm as I'm going to get, and unfortunately it's Orlando and not someplace exotic, but that's what's coming up later this month for me.
Great.
Wonderful, Peter.
Definitely a weather theme here.
Yeah, I've got mine all lined up.
Yeah, we don't tell people what it's like here.
Thank you.
They just get angry. I know. Randy, tell us about you. Good morning, or good afternoon.
Good morning. It's almost afternoon. My name is Renji. I'm calling in from Toronto. And I think part of the reason why I'm here is this goes back to the early days of Twitter. I've been following Hildy's work like way back when, I think when the hashtag SoCant was just coming out. And, like, so I was already aware of the Pollyanna principles and the work that Creating the Future was doing. And then a couple years ago, 2 years now I think, when Hildy was being hosted at Mars, I got the opportunity to like be part of that workshop, then go to dinner afterwards, and it was just fantastic. It was good to make this connection over Twitter, but then finally meet someone in person because we're all interested in the same thing. So I'm really excited to be part of this conversation today. I work at the intersection of technology and social innovation. So I used to work at Social Innovation Generation with Francis Wesley, Dr. Francis Wesley, and then I did a stint. I built a startup out of Velocity Garage Incubate at the University of Waterloo a couple years ago. That didn't turn out so well. I'm now at an agency called Igniter, where we work at the intersection of digital and systemic change. So we've worked with a number of different partners in the social sector, in the philanthropy sector. Recently, we just launched our own venture called Pine. It's in a way, it's an app that allows you to just check in on yourself and how you're doing. And the bigger picture is that we're looking to address the mental health and wellness space, but it's using mobile technology, digital technology to do that. So I'm pretty excited about that. I don't have a warm getaway coming up. What I do have is a cold getaway. I'm coming up next week. I'm going to Montreal next weekend to go see my girlfriend, which I'm really excited about, but it's really cold here in Toronto, and I'm assuming it's going to be really cold in Montreal next week, so we'll just see how that goes.
It's always good in Montreal, no matter what the weather is.
That's true.
Yeah.
Very cool. Very cold. Very cool. I'll give you guys warning that they're doing construction on our roof, I think. I suddenly heard what sounded like the abominable snowman coming through, so if you guys hear banging, you never ever know. I also want to welcome Mike Mella and Deborah Askenazi are tweeted in that they're with us, so hi guys, it's really good to have you guys here.
Wonderful. I think it's Robert's turn.
It's Robert's turn. Robert Rosenthal, tell us about you.
Hi everyone. Hope you can hear me okay. I'm currently calling in from the intersection of dogs barking and no gas up here on the top of the world from Kathmandu, Nepal, and I've been living here for the past few months after a year of traveling through Asia, and I am a communications consultant and capacity builder who works with clients both in South Asia and also in North America. Up until about a year ago, I was the Vice President of Communications and Marketing at volunteermatch.org in San Francisco, where I worked for 7 years helping nonprofits and corporate leaders engage volunteers in social good, and very interested in communications and digital strategy and supporting the work of capacity builders as a strategic imperative for myself. Yeah, I've been up here in Nepal exploring this part of the world and getting used to life in one of the poorest countries in the world. It's a different thing from this side of the view. But it's amazing to be on a call with folks from all over the world, and it's amazing to be able to add what value I can, hopefully, to this conversation. And I know Hildy and Dimitri because I too am from the same hometown of Tucson, Arizona.
Oh.
Go Wildcats! And I've always been intrigued at their work, and was fortunate on a recent trip back to the United States to spend some quality time eating tacos and talking about creating the future together. So I'm looking forward to being helpful.
Yeah, we're thrilled you're here. Just thrilled you're here. And how about you, Mr. Petropoulos? Tell us a little bit about you.
Well, I want to clarify something first before I get into my own comments, and that is, Renji said that you were hosted on Mars. So, for the people who might not know what that is, it's not the plan. It is. It is a really amazing organization in Toronto. I think it was originally affiliated with the university there, and is now its own sort of entity that deals with innovation, change, both technical and social. It's an acronym for medical and related sciences, I think is what it's an acronym for. So it comes out as MARS, but I just didn't want people to be confused as to what it was. Second quick thing is I wanted to answer the question, which one of these Google Hangout participants is not dressed like the others? That was tweeted by Robert, and I'll let the audience decide. who isn't? Two things. One on the nature perspective, because I'm going to put that hat on what people have been addressing. We've had a lot of rain this year here. Really more rain than we've had in probably a couple of decades. It's not flooding, but it's just a steady rain. What that means is that later this month, and next month, and after that, the wildflowers in the desert will start blooming. And the wildflowers are not prevalent annually. They really are dependent on rain. There'll be some every year, but the years that there's been a lot of rain, it's a forest of flowers. I mean, it's a carpet of flowers, sometimes as far as you can see. So I'm really excited.
Wow.
Amazing. And my last awesome is this. Wow. The fact that all of you are here and that we are talking about what we're talking about. What a great opportunity to both demonstrate what's possible technically and especially conceptually toward figuring out what the questions are for what we want to accomplish. So thank you all.
Can I just say, from the perspective of the board, and I'm sure I'm speaking on Alex's behalf as well, to thank all of you for your time. You cannot know how valuable it is to us that we're going to benefit from your perspectives and that this organization will grow as a result.
Thanks for having
Glad to be
us.
here. Yeah, thank you.
And lastly, I'm Hilda Gottlieb, and we won't go into my connection with Creating Future. Two sort of awesome things in the past week for me. I guess the first, there's three. We've been so excited about starting this process and being with you guys, and the fact that you're being part of this. So we've sort of been like kids waiting for Christmas. I just need to tell you that. The opportunity to blow up our website and to start from strategy, not start from all of the places where so many of us frequently get called in after some thinking has been done and we don't have the opportunity to really root around in it. So that's exciting. The two other big exciting things in my personal life, one is I have been writing. I know that we sent you guys who are on the screen and have invited folks publicly to comment on the first half of Creating the Future's Theory of Change, which was sort of like giving birth, and when I go into the second part, it will also be like giving birth. And
Twins.
Twins! And so that's just been really, it's wonderful to have outside of my head. What I realized the last time I wrote something huge like this is you don't realize how much you carry that stuff inside your head until it's finally out on paper, and then you realize how much brain space it's been taking up, so that's been pretty nice for me. And the second thing is just immensely personal, which is that my daughter, who is making her way in the entertainment industry in Hollywood, went to her first, she was part of the team that wrote, developed, produced, directed, created the Lego Movie. And so she went to her first 2 awards ceremonies this past weekend. And some of you know my kid or know her via Facebook. My daughter is the absolute tomboy of all tomboys, down to having her hair in a mohawk, which is adorable on a 29-year-old and wouldn't be so hot on us. She, watching her in a fabulous is the only word, fabulous sequined dress, sporting the mohawk, and of course her Converse. Yeah, no mama could possibly be more proud to sort of see what happens when your kids just grow and blossom.
And
so.
they won.
And they won awards.
They won awards.
They won awards. So it was just pretty awesome to see that, and just it's, you know, any of you guys who are parents know what it is to watch your kids grow and become who they have the opportunity to become. So that was my pretty cool thing.
And the timing is perfect.
Timing is perfect to introduce Troy. Can you hear us, Troy? You may need to unmute your mic. There you go.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Wonderful. You are perfectly in time to just introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about what brings you to this particular meeting, what your interest is, what you're doing with yourself, and most importantly, just something quick that's awesome that's going on in your life. So you're on.
Sure. So I guess I've been a software engineer for about 15 years, and currently I'm working for one of the world's largest publication companies, digital publication, data management, etc. I manage the team of software engineers that builds all of our web platforms and data platforms and those sorts of things. The reason that we're connected, of course, is because a couple of years ago, I was part of a very interesting, I guess, series of community benefit sorts of activities and got to take the benefit of your training. More recently, I've been really hoping that I could find a way to get your training into the organization that I'm a part of. So that's kind of led us to having some talks about what you're doing and what I'm up to and those sorts of things. I guess really what's going on in my life right now is that I'm trying to find ways more and more to bring the kind of forward-facing, work backwards to a plan sort of I guess community benefit and value add to the organizations that I'm a part of, in addition to, of course, my own personal ones. So.
Yeah. Well, it's great to have you here, and I'm glad you could pop in just right in time.
It's perfect.
So,
and you'll have to go back and watch the recording to see who everybody else is.
I know. And Robert just posted, I don't even want to go there, pictures of the wildflowers that happened in Tucson. So you guys will all have to check it out.
I had hoped to post that. I think I just posted pictures of rain, but I'll try and get a wildflower picture up there. It really is spectacular.
Yay. Wonderful. What we thought we would do real quickly to ground everybody in where Creating the Future is headed, we had sent this out to the team that you see on the screen here, but sent it out to you last night, which I really apologize for. And so just in case, you guys didn't get a chance to watch this great video, and certainly folks who are watching, we thought that we would start by grounding you guys in what Creating the Future is trying to accomplish over the next year and a half, 2 years, and really looking to accomplish our mission. So hopefully the technology will work and we can play this thing. I just want to confirm, are you guys seeing us on video?
Seeing your logo. I'm seeing just a logo.
Just a logo, you're not seeing the video?
Mm-mm. Nope.
Okay.
Nope.
That's why we want to make sure that it's... That woman just keeps saying the same thing.
I know. No. All right. It is up. It's live. And well, let me take this off. Good. And let me turn it off.
Now, okay.
And turn it back on. Do you guys see it yet?
What do you see on this?
You.
Us.
I see the logo.
Us.
Well, you know what? I will tell you what the video says. I just won't look as sharp as I did in the video.
Oh, you really look good in that video. We'll tell you all about it.
Really wanted to just, yeah. Okay, so let's get that off the screen. And what Creating the Future is looking at is our mission. Let me start with our mission. And I love the fact that Gail reads this at the beginning of every board meeting, so I'm going to do the same. Creating the Future envisions communities where people are living well, individually and collectively, bringing out the best in themselves and each other. We know such a future is possible simply because it is not impossible. To accomplish that, our 10-year mission is to change the question embedded in the day-to-day work of individuals and organizations so that everyone naturally brings out the best in each other and our world. And so that is our mission. Our mission is within 10 years, and the board loves the fact that there's a 10-year time clock on our mission. Within 10 years, we see a tipping point where the norm of how we be with each other, we begin to see that shifting where it's no longer an unusual occurrence, but the questions that bring out the best in each other.
We weren't, but the audience was.
Okay. Okay, so none of us on the screen were seeing it.
On the screen, but the audience was seeing it because.
Well, thank you, Deborah, for letting us know.
So we could play the video.
That's okay. Let's dive in here and get into the meat of what we're doing. The big piece of what we're going to be accomplishing over the next couple of years, we've spent the last 2 years really of creating the future, putting the pieces in place so that we're ready to say, okay, what is it going to take to accomplish the mission? And one of the many things that we know it's going to take to accomplish the mission, you guys saw that we posted a list of all of the, we posted to the blog a list of many of the players that we know it's going to take. It's going to take not just the traditional nonprofit community benefit world. It's not going to take just the government world. It's not going to take the corporate world. It's going to take everybody changing the way that we be in our day-to-day lives so that we're asking the questions day-to-day that bring out the best in everybody. And if we bring out the best in everybody, then we'll naturally do things that are good for the world and for ourselves. So our establishing a website, a web presence, is a huge piece in our working to accomplish our mission. So that is and for those of you who have been part of this journey for a long time, you know that our website has been a patchwork. We sort of laugh that if you go deep enough in our website, you'll find articles from 1997. Mm-hmm. So it's definitely time to blow it up and start over again.
You could do like a scavenger.
Yeah. Unfortunately, when I know where all the bombs are, I know where all the bad stuff is. I want to quickly describe the process that we'll be using and then just dive in. And I mentioned that we're in the process of writing the theory of change, and so I apologize that it is not completely done. But the catalytic thought framework that we have been using for about 10 years and have been teaching for about 6 years, and now our fellows are using out in the world and getting amazing results in bringing out the best of them. Starts with meeting people where they are, which is a big piece of why it was so important for us to get to know each other a little bit. That one of the two big pieces of the framework is that it's always about the people. It's never about the thing. When things fall apart, when things are great, it's always because the people made it so, and not because the thing is. And so a huge piece is that we get to know each other and meet people where they are. From there, we know the other reality, which is causality. That life is just cause and effect, and so everything we do is cause and effect. So if we want to create an amazing future, we need to start with that, create the cause and effect path backwards to that. And we do that. And what you find when eventually I write the catalytic thought piece of the white paper, and what you'll find when you read it, is that it applies to everything. And many of our fellows, I know Trey and Gail and Alex, you especially, but Marlene and Annette, you've also seen that when you apply this way of thinking, you can apply it to anything. And I'll share with you guys that I even applied it when my mom was ailing and we needed to figure out how to get her to stop driving. It brought out the best in her rather than that fighting, that constant. So that's the process we're going to use today. We're going to start with what's possible, and we're going to then ask, well, what are the cause and effect conditions that will lead to what's possible, which is accomplishing our mission, and only then will we look internally. And I'm just going to share one or two more insights, and then let's get started. The reason we don't start internally is because one of the things that we have found is that no matter where a conversation starts, it gets narrower, smaller, and more internal. And you really then have to work really hard to struggle to get it, well, wait a minute, where's the big picture? So what we found is if we start with the big picture outside of us and work our way into what is our role in that aligns and it adds energy to the thought process. When we start with money, when we start with a bunch of ideas, when we start with people, everything naturally goes smaller than that, and we limit our thinking. So if we want to push our thinking out to as high as it can be, that's where we're going to start, and we will walk backwards. The interesting thing is that at the end of that, we'll have a bazillion ideas about all different kinds of ways that we can accomplish what we need to accomplish for all these various parties, and then we can make the decision about which makes sense to do in what order. What do we have budget for, or where do we want to start looking, or what is our priority? But unless we look at the whole field, that's why so many of you who have dealt with the latter end of the process, and I know that Marlene and several others of you mentioned to Dimitri in your conversations, that you're always called in at the end, and that you're always going then, well, what about this, and what about that? And it's like, no, we can't think about that now. Let's give ourselves the space to think about it and then narrow down. That's pretty much what I've got in terms of setting us up, and I hope all of you have had a chance to quickly grab, and if not, I've got the list in front of me, of who we know needs to be involved in this work, and not only who needs to be involved with creating the future, because that's so us-centered, but whose mission are we also serving? Because we're not the only ones who want to bring out the best in others. We're not the only ones who want systems change. So as we're looking to engage people who this is also their mission, whether or not they've articulated it in these words, those are sort of the for whoms as we're starting to ask these questions. So let's just dive in and get started. What you will see on the post that I posted last night, for anybody that's watching, the post is at our Walking the Talk blog, and as you're watching it, you'll see the link in that blog post where you are, called Web Strategy Background Information. The folks that are listed there are, and I'll just share this really quickly. People frequently ask us if our target is organizations who are doing work on the ground. Because that makes sense. You would think that. Whether it is small businesses, social enterprises, traditional nonprofit community benefit organizations, our target, if we're going to accomplish our mission in 10 years, is the people who influence those people. Because for every social investor, for every business investor, for every corporate leader that has a ripple effect among several different divisions and departments, that one leverage point triggers so many other leverage points. So for every foundation that we target with wanting to build that relationship, they're affecting 50 or 100 different organizations or 1,000 different organizations on the ground. And so what we've sort of called intermediaries, those are our primary focus. We also know, though, that those individuals need information to share with the people that they're working with. So Gail, as a consultant working with community benefit organizations, you need information that you can then say, well, here's the approach that we're taking. We also know that Alex, working with social entrepreneurs, that frequently those social entrepreneurs are listening to Alex and going, I want to find out more about that. So secondarily, we need to have stuff at the website that is there for them, that supports them in the work that they're doing. But our primary focus is what do we want the website to make possible for business investors, for capacity builders in all places, for corporate leaders, for social investors. So let's just start with social investors and foundations and donors. What could our web presence and our website make possible for those social investors, foundations, donors, folks that are investing in social good? What could this website make possible for them?
Well, I think, for one thing, it could be a place for them to go to be reminded of what the mission is and how they can apply the mission. A lot of times, my background's in training, so I have a strong bias towards doing what we want people to be able to do or to know. And we're humans, and we need a lot of repetition to integrate information. So to me, it's really important for the website, for all above, but it's certainly social investors, foundations, and donors, that they can go a place, they can be reminded of all of this, whether that's through video, pictures, infographics, doesn't matter. But I think that's really important.
One question I think we should think about as we're doing this exercise is actually, what are the pain points for these folks? What are you looking to solve for them? You know, what are some of the kind of the unmet needs that these groups have, and what could this site provide to them that would engage them in a way that would lead them towards the outcomes you're looking for?
So what do you guys see as those pain points when groups are when those social investors and foundations are trying to bring out the best in their grantees? What are you seeing that's not working for them? Where are their frustration points that you're seeing?
I would probably, I think I want to hear the answer to that question, and the answer that comes to my mind right away is framed in the positive, which is I have this feeling that there are people out there who sense there's a different way of doing things, not unlike how you've described Creating the Future's approach, Hildy, and I think people are looking for each other. They want to find others who are starting to think or have already been way down the track, thinking in a new, and acting and behaving and resourcing in a new way. And I sense that this website might be a place for them to gather. And that might be a way of resolving some of that pain point, which is isolation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so it's really interesting. What you're talking about is they're both looking for information, sensing that there's something out there that they can be doing that's more effective. They're looking for information, but they're also looking for other people who are feeling the same way. Mm-hmm. 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 What else?
Somewhat related to what Gail just said when she mentioned isolation is, and kind of going back to the what could be possible through the website. I'm thinking about funders who feel disconnected from the difference that they were hoping to make. So to flip it around, what could be possible is really helping them to understand what the end result is of their funding, of their contributions, and the difference they're making.
Give me a little bit more in terms of their understanding. Is that understanding their current difference that they're making, or understanding how they can make more difference?
I think both. I think if I'm thinking about pain points, the way Peter framed it, I think the pain point would be the money going out there and not really seeing what happened with it. So then the difference that the current funding cycle is making. But then the other as well, like these are people who want to make change in the world. So what the site could make possible is help them to see exactly what changes are happening.
You know, one thing that strikes me, I guess, when you're talking about a website or a web application, you know, I think you've got some great tools that are part of the process that, you know, Creating the Future facilitates and trains and those sorts of things, that really helps an organization or a group to define what they're about, how they make decisions, what are the important factors for them, etc. Maybe one thing that the website could provide is a way to make that visible, so that you're not just connecting to people in terms of words and you know, blog posts and those sorts of things, but hey, here's our value matrix, here's how we make choices. If you resonate with these things, talk to us. That a way, I guess, in order to not only create tools that somebody could interactively use through some sort of a web application, but then to share the results of those tools and let other people interact with them as well.
Well, so what it can make possible for them is to have not only a way of seeing things differently, but actually concrete tools that they could use, but also the learning from each other piece is like really ways to, because as a living laboratory, the information comes in, goes out, comes in, goes out. Yeah.
Well, and also a lot of websites that are just very textually based, or just have a lot of videos can be overwhelming for people. But if there's a tool or something like that that they're coming back to interact with regularly for their own practice, for their own information, there's a reason for them to come back, which then allows them to see the Twitter feed on the side or the other people that are commenting on something or whatever else. It gives you some stickiness.
Yeah.
Renji, I'm thinking about it doesn't relate directly, but I'm thinking about some of the social impact of the app you're working on the Pine app. That kind of touches upon some of what Troy was talking about there. So.
I think, Robert here, I think getting back to what Peter was saying, what are the pain points? I think one of the pain points for social impact investors is it's difficult for them to get to know the individuals who are having the greatest impact in capacity building, these influencers. It's easy for them to get to know the organizations that I think are sort of the highest value or the ones who are having the greatest, getting the biggest news. But the individuals, particularly the consultants, I think are often very difficult for them to get a hold of and connect with. So I think even something as simple as a directory or even just access to some of the greatest influencers I think would be really helpful for them. And those relationships I think can point them in all kinds of different directions. Who should they be funding? What kind of events should they be going to? What should they be reading? What theories of change are the most exciting for them? And so just being able to connect those strategic investors with individuals who are so influential in the nonprofit sector, I think would be really helpful.
What would that make possible for those funders and social investors?
Well, they would have access to individuals rather than organizations who are extremely influential in the social benefit sector. So again, one of the things that I've noticed, Hildy, is that very often you're working with individuals in the Creating the Future network rather than organizations, and I think that's an unusual perspective. And for these investors, I think having access to a whole new range of very influential, very smart people who would normally be a little bit hard to get a hold of, a little bit hard to get to know, a little bit hard to become aware of, I think that alone would be an important benefit of a new, easy-to-use digital presence. What the feature set might look like of that, I'm not quite ready to go there, but I think just being able to pierce the veil and get a hold of all these consultants, I think would be really helpful.
Yeah, go ahead, Peter. I'm sorry.
I was just going to say, and that plays to one of your great strengths already, right? That's one of the things you're very good at, is bringing people together and connecting people who have, similar perspectives but may not know each other or have ways of helping each other out. I don't think it would be a stretch to develop a part of the site that accomplishes that for you in a much more overt way. I think Robert's got a really good point there.
What is the benefit of that to those social investors?
Well, the number one benefit is that it'll save them time in having to track down influential people, influential thinkers in the nonprofit sector and social change sector on their own. Usually these are people who go to events. I'm thinking, particularly kind of the, markets for change type events. Places where they're, intently working on problems around how to quantify social change and create investment continuums in order to figure out where to put the money. What's missing, though, is this whole realm of individuals within the social change world who are highly influential but aren't necessarily, a vice president at a large nonprofit or an executive director at a large nonprofit, like a lot of the people in the network that Creating the Future works with. And so the idea really is that it'll save those investors time in creating those relationships. It'll give them access to people that they wouldn't normally get a hold of, and it would also help them recognize that they have peers on the side of the consultants and individual thinkers. Those peers can become important bridges to all kinds of new ventures and new activities.
When I what I'm hearing in addition from what Robert is describing in terms of how those investors would feel, is like, because he's talking about access to influence, and I heard kind of like that what this would look like for them would a feeling of greater influence in what they do because they're accessing those influencers, feeling supported because their network is stronger, and therefore I hear empowerment. I feel like it. What this looks like is funders and donors feeling empowered, more empowered, and maybe therefore a little more encouraged too. You know, more inspired to keep going.
It's something that struck me when you were talking, Robert, and you mentioned quantifying social change almost in passing. I think that's one of the biggest pain points that we hear is how do we know? How do we know? All of the conversation around, well, you can't really measure that, so we'll measure what we can measure. But the other thing that I heard that was almost unspoken in what you said is that people tend to be talking to their positional peers. And that when we're talking with about social investors especially, you mentioned something about somebody may not be a vice president in a large organization. Vice presidents will tend to talk with vice presidents in large organizations. But the individuals who may be able to help them with their thinking and be influencers may not be that at all. And so that's where I'm getting excited in that space. Tell me what you guys are seeing.
It's like a cross-pollination.
That's exciting to me. It's not positional.
Right.
So creating the future draws people together on the basis of ideas and vision and passion rather than position.
And what does that make possible?
So it sounds like we've got kind of two separate themes. One of them is about when you have influence, what do you do with it, right? Like what kind of tools do you need? What kind of reference material do you need? How do you refer somebody back to something so that they can have a touch point for it in a conversation starter or a reminder or a tool or something along those lines? And the other half is around how do you get those connections? How do you touch base with more people and create broader influence? I think to me, when you ask the question of what does that make possible, I guess it's efficiency and it's scale. So if you have somebody who has the capacity, the communication ability, the know-how, the passion, etc., to be influential, how do you connect them to more people so they can have that influence broaden? And then how do you make the impact sticky? How do you make it last? So they leave something behind that draws the people they're influencing into the community, into the thought process, creates them, a connection point for a broader part of the conversation.
That scale piece is huge, and I love the efficiency and scale.
And the sticky. And because it's so easy to, and mea culpa, to even in the midst of this to not be there. I mean, to drift off on a conceptual or an idea. So having something that brings you back and helps you build on it is really, really powerful.
Yeah, one of the organizations I've worked with in the last couple of years, they describe their sales policy as land and expand. So we want to drop a little product into the customer's environment that becomes critical. It becomes an integral part of how they do their business.
So it's not colonial, is what you're talking about.
Right. Then we touch base with them on a regular basis, and we say, hey, do you do this other thing too? Because if so, we have this other tool that you might also want to look at. And I guess I see the if somebody does a workshop with an organization or has a cool conversation when they're at a seminar or whatever else, and is able to give them something that lands, which then becomes meaningful to the person, the community itself can help to expand. It can help to draw them into more conversation, to get them using other tools, to get them to using tools together, collaboratively. I think to me, that's where it becomes less about the individual person having to follow up with their entire network and more about bringing more people into the network in a meaningful way.
Yeah.
I think that's a really good point because in order to see change, even at the top level, people like to know other people who are being successful in implementing this, other people who want to be successful in implementing this. I mean, you know, giving that hurdle help, I think could be really important.
Yeah.
Changing tracks. Oh,
Pardon
sorry,
me?
go on.
No, go ahead, Robert.
Well, I was gonna attempt to change tracks there, but then I realized the group might not be ready for a track change. So let me know when the group is ready for a track change on that one.
Yeah. These conversations always generate lots of spark.
Now that I have everyone's attention, though, I will go ahead and change the track. One of the things that I think...
And I may change you back.
One of the funders sometimes also, they need a safe place to be able to connect with people in the realm of ideas without necessarily feeling like they're going to get pitched.
Yep.
And one of the things that I think is great about this community is it's not a place where people go for money, and it's not a place where people go to spend money. So I think, you know, making sure it's a safe place where ideas and influential concepts can be incubated and practiced is probably a critical need, which can be supported by the digital effort some way.
Oh yeah, no, it's huge. It's absolutely huge.
You know, that fits so well with our conversations related to reframing philanthropy and an understanding that we want to cultivate relationships with funders and others on the basis of shared vision, shared values, shared ideas, rather than simply the opportunity to see them as checkbooks with legs or people with deep pockets that, you know, we should just give money and then leave.
Yeah.
Right, moving beyond a transactional relationship and making sure this is a digital effort that supports transformational relationships would be really important.
So,
and that's a big piece of what our eventual mission is that we can reframe philanthropy, as you said, Gail, and change that dynamic, which so many funders are so frustrated with. Talk about a pain point. They're frustrated with it, and yet all of the systems that they use reinforce that.
If I could chime in, last summer we were putting together this collaborative proposal to map the social good sector, or to create a comprehensive database of social good for Ontario. When we did this at Igniter and Socialscape, this project that we were working on with the McConnell Foundation, with Mars, Ashoka, and Catalyst X, and when we did this with like 8 other organizations as well too. And the feedback that we got from the foundation that we were applying to said that, you know, we get $10 million in requests, but we really only have $6 million to hand out, right? So the idea, I guess, a big pain point for funders and social investors is where can they invest their money, where they can get the most bang for their buck, the most impact, and all of these other questions. So that's like one thread that I just wanted to put out there. The second thread I wanted to build on Robert's idea. I think, you know, after listening to the discussion and knowing where creating the future, like what its strengths are, and bringing all these people together, and even the fact that we're having this conversation live on air, and it's really open, it's collaborative, and people on Twitterverse, they can jump in and they can watch, you know, all this unfold. We're talking about ideas here, right? And we're talking about a safe space to really define and try to figure out what does the future look like that we want to see. And then it reminded me of Y Combinator's approach. So Y Combinator, for those of you guys that don't know, is this like probably one of the best startup accelerators in the world. It's based out of Palo Alto. It used to be run by a guy named Paul Graham. Now it's run by Sam Altman. And they put out this thing called their request for startups. And so I've just shared the link to Y Combinator's request for startups in the chat. And the idea here is that they're looking for startups and like really enterprising people that they want to fund in these different sectors, whether it's in energy, AI, robotics, biotech, healthcare, and so on, right? And so I think creating the future, if your strength is, you know, bringing people together, enabling conversation, and not being about oh, we're just going to come here because we think we can get funding. It's like, no, it's really the back and forth of ideas. I think that's really that's a strategic role that Creating the Future and the website could play in saying, okay, this is, defining, this is, from all these conversations, this is the future like that we see it. These are the different ideas. These are the different pieces that we see. If they came together, this could work. Who's working on this? Come join our community. Come meet everyone else who's working on these other ideas too, right? Like let's get everyone in the same room. Let's get everyone in the same hangout, or have these multiple channels, or whatever it is. Like, he continued to facilitate these types of conversations. But I just want to throw that out there as well too.
Yeah. Well, and what it's sparking for me, I'm wondering, Peter, given that you spent some time at the Council on Foundations, what are you sensing at the level of funders, very specifically in the foundation world, who want to accomplish more? What are you sensing from them that is missing?
They're all still struggling with how to define and measure impact, especially of their grantees. That's something that, is a fundamental question and a fundamental discussion point for all of them all the time. They want to know that their investments are getting the maximum possible impact at all times, and they're looking for either ways to measure their impact better, ways to find out how others are finding success in that area, and interested in having meaningful conversations with others about that topic too.
So one of the themes that I'm hearing then is around, sorry, is everyone else echoing? Or just me?
A little bit.
I'll go through it. Is around reducing risk, or in other words, creating more certainty. So if we think about investors, right, as other people have said, they want to maximize their impact for the least amount of money, but also they're constantly getting pitched to. They feel a lot of pressure to sort of make decisions without complete information. So if you're able to align people that are around certain values, but then also to change that mindset, it's a rethinking philanthropy, we're building it together from the beginning. That's a very different model, and assuming that we trust the people we're working with actually increases the certainty so much more, as opposed to building off of what Renji said, the idea of getting sort of, this is the idea we want to work towards, let's do it together, that we can actually play a role in together, as opposed to hoping that sort of supply equals demand, and then you make the right match between supply and demand, and then you can have that impact as you go.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. And I think you actually kind of bridged to something else too, which is another big thing for foundation leaders, is they want to be seen as more than just piggy banks. They want to be seen as folks who are leading discussions and adding thought leadership to guide solutions to some of the big problems facing society. So it isn't, the impact is important, but they want to be seen as more than just people who are giving out money. They want to be seen as folks who understand these complex problems and are finding ways to have discussions about how to solve them.
Yeah, one of the things that I'm hearing a lot from foundation leaders, from social investors in general, is beyond that they want to be seen as it, they don't know how to be it. They really want it, and so how do we become conveners? How have others become conveners? Because they see other people doing it. What can we learn from what they have? And one of the things that I'm hearing a word pop up in the past several comments is the word together. And Alex, you bridged from them thinking together to them doing together. And that's really intriguing for me, because just as they need safe space for thinking together, that building of, I can't tell you how many sheepish looks I've gotten in a room full of foundation leaders and social investors when I say, and how many of you guys work together? Mm-hmm. And they all get the same look. It's like, your 13-year-old that didn't put out the trash again. And so I think that there's some real power in this. To help them get past some blockages that they've had in how they want to walk the talk, they just don't know how.
So I think it sounds like in terms of community, togetherness, is about more than just touching organizations and having, groups that have similar mission statement talking to each other. It's also about the people that make the funding. It's about the consultants who help people to evaluate. It's about the project managers or you know, folks of that mindset who need some way of creating objective or at least consistent measurability. And it's also around having people be able to talk about adapting and creating new tools for tracking those things. So I guess what I'm hearing is you're almost talking about, you know, some sort of a portal where part of what the portal does for you is it draws all of these different people together in their respective roles and gives them touch points and events where they can have conversations like this, but also some tracking to say, you know, once we have that conversation, let's tie actions to it. Let's tie measurable results to it. If we're going to fund something, how do I then see, here are the values that I'm investing in, here are the decisions that were made based on alignment to those values, and here are the results that I received in a consistent format that this community as a whole says, we agree that those are the valid ways to measure progress against some sort of a project, some sort of a deliverable. Maybe what the web presence is not only that community center point to be able to draw people together, but also the series of tools that are generated by those communities' conversations and tracked in one place. So you have kind of a software layer of whatever it is, you know, or you know, even if it was somewhat simplistic at the beginning, a software layer that is designed by the community's conversations, like this one, and grows over time to meet what the changing conversation says is valid, and ties values, people, results, you know, in a meaningful way, the community sources.
I'm hearing about 7 different things that are sparking my brain. If you guys are watching my face go, it's tying back initially, Robert, when you were talking about having access to individuals. There's the word that occurred to me when you said portal, Troy, is an on-ramp. I think that a lot of people are looking for where do we find whatever the on-ramp is to other people, to individuals, to tools. Where do I go? And suddenly what was becoming clear for me is there's sort of a continuum of results that people can get depending on what they're looking for. So if I'm looking for tools, I can get tools. That might lead me into tools that require conversation or that enable conversation with other people, and oh my gosh, there's a place for that conversation and support as I'm trying this new tool and what I'm learning, which can reinforce the tool. Introduction to concepts in those conversations that can then be practiced, and so a place for practice and a place for actually not just tools but learning more. And what I was drawing arrows that what it makes possible is a feedback and learning and input loop. That I come for a tool, I learn something else in addition, I meet somebody, and that makes me stronger at everything that I'm trying to do, which I then feed back in, and it feeds all of those things. So
including the value system that, you know, Gail, you were talking about early on is you know, what brings people to this portal in the first place. The safety, you know, that they're not being pitched by something regardless of which part of the spectrum you are. And that you will be able to be the, not expert, but be able to be valued for what you offer intellectually to what's going on, and be changing it as a result of your participation, be changing this whole process as a result of being there. So it's very cool.
And one of the things I want to add is having worked with a lot of community benefit organizations on the ground, one of the things that surprises me a lot of times is that they don't understand the language that funders are using. I remember back in the early 2000s, outcomes and collaboration was huge. And I remember going into a meeting, and one of the executive directors who felt fairly safe in that environment said, "What the heck are outcomes? I don't understand what they're talking about." And we make a lot of assumptions, and so we had to really step back and explain and give examples. And I think that happens at every level. You know, we're throwing out new words. I mean, I notice now impacts and new outcomes. You know, I mean, you know, we keep changing the words. And I think for those who are in this space and follow what's going on in this space, that's fine, because we're used to shifting, and we love language, and we love words, and we love concepts and theory. But a lot of people just want to know what to do and what does that mean. They are, you know, and so I wonder part of the disconnect is that the funders need help communicating what they're looking for, communicating what that means. Because it's easy to get caught up in theory and words. And people on the ground want to know, okay, well, what do I do? And I think sometimes donors don't know what to say. And so I think helping them over that hurdle would be really helpful. Because I've seen that again and again and again, to the point where we had to, like, what does collaboration? Well, let's start a collaborative around something that feels safe and non-threatening. And so we did in the area of training foster parents, for example. And so this is what it looks like, and this is how we meet, and this is how we talk, and this is what we share. And when we feel unsafe, this is how we deal with that. I mean, it seems very basic, but really it is basic. We got to bring it back to meeting people where they are. And that's everyone. We're all human. You know, we're all struggling with feeling, you know, not smart enough, whatever. I mean, maybe that's not an issue for everyone, but I see that. And so people don't ask questions because they assume they're supposed to know that. And I think a lot of people make that assumption. So, and it shuts people down.
It's especially, Annette, when you're talking about not feeling smart enough and feeling like you should be the smartest person in the room, and what if, God forbid, somebody finds out I'm not. I think that the more we talk with folks positionally who are leaders and perceive themselves to be, the worse that is. So one of the groups we've been talking about is corporate leaders, foundation leaders. They believe that they believe that they're supposed to be the smartest people in the room, and it is actually more painful for them to not know. I love that.
Mm-hmm. And so how do you create an environment where it's safe to not know? I mean, it was one of the blog posts I was reading recently on Creating the Future about saying I don't know, but saying I don't know, but I'll find out. And in my experience, it sounded like a lot of the people agreed. The people we truly trust are the ones who can say that. You know what? I don't know, but I'll help you find out, or let's find out together, or whatever. Because the role model's moving towards something. It's like you don't have to be perfect to show up.
To Annette's point, I think a general principle to think about as we go back to like the web strategy is to find something that really scales well. So to find a way to both hook people, so kind of give them their first introduction. With my social entrepreneurs, oftentimes I'll find one really good resource from the article library that I think is, hey, this is great, you're working on how to manage a board, awesome, read this thing, and then you'll get a sense. But then also to be able to make it to really scale. So to think about where the different visitors are coming from. So both ways that you can just dip your feet in and kind of get a couple of things. And maybe that's for someone, again, if we go back to this, increased certainty, lower risk, that they can have something they can take into action with whoever they work with. But then also, hopefully you get really engaged and you go deeper and deeper, and then we're able to meet them there with resources, with community, and so on.
I think also it's important for us to keep in mind, somebody said earlier that funders struggle with measuring impact and they are trying to figure out how to get the most impact for the least amount of money. I think in terms of this website, we also then should be conscious of the sort of scarcity orientation that people are bringing, whether it's their first time at our website or their 100th time, it's probably still going to be there in some way. And how we reframe it, how we help them reframe it in a way that addresses that ability to be vulnerable and aspirational.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's been really interesting to me. I was at the Michigan Council on Foundations conference in October. And in my closing keynote for that, I talked about creating the future's concept of collective enoughness, that individually is when we face scarcity, and that it's only on our own that we face scarcity, that collectively we have everything we need. And it was so moving to me afterwards, the number of foundation leaders who came up to me afterwards and said, finally, I am. This is touching me at a place that has nothing to do with money. This is touching me at a place that has to do with what we're about in the first place, and so part of what I'm sensing from the conversation is that the website ability to and you know, Robert, you and several others talked about the fact that it's hard to talk with foundations without them thinking that you want your hand in their pocket, and to have the conversation be entirely about what we want to accomplish and what we can accomplish together that we can't on our own, and the resources we have collectively, and how to see resources differently in their communities, and potentially being conveners of resources in their communities, not just being the deep pockets. They've been introduced to the concept of convener of conversation. But what's sort of popping for me, Gail, when you talk about moving from that scarcity orientation, is that they have the possibility of being conveners also of other resources in the community, because they know who's got what. Everybody comes to them and says what they've got.
Right. No matter what the community is.
Exactly. Oh,
I mean,
yeah.
The community
Yeah.
could be the world. I mean, in that
Right.
sense, depending on what the mission of the organization is.
One thing that is occurring to me as I look at the list of folks that we want to engage, social investors, foundations, donors, also business investors, angel investors in new enterprises, whether they're small or large, nonprofit capacity builders, business capacity builders, government capacity builders, leaders in government systems, sort of like a city manager who can set the tone, just like a corporate leader can set the tone in a corporation. I'm sort of sensing that a lot of what we're talking about here is similar for many of them. That if we talk about what could this website make possible to a corporate leader, I'm sensing that some of this is similar. Let's go to that end. I mean, I know, Troy, you've been in the corporate world in a very large, in a division within a very, very large organization.
Yeah.
But what can, if we're talking about corporate leaders who have the ability to make decisions that change the culture of how decisions are made throughout an organization, what can a place like this make possible for them? And you don't have to be the one to answer. I mean, I'm putting you on the spot there.
I keep hearing us describe the value of a project plan, you know, just to kind of put it in corporate terms, a project plan and an ROI. If I go to the board of directors of my organization and I say, I need $3 million, they're going to ask me for what? And they don't just want me to give them, you know, a conversation about it. It's not just a list of things that they're theoretically going to get. They want to know how I'm going to get it. They want to know how they're going to measure whether they got it. They want to know where my touch points are, what my milestones are. Why is this the thing that we're deciding to spend $3 million on instead of some other thing that we could be spending the same $3 million on in the same time? Who's going to work on it and why? What skills do we need? I mean, there's a whole plan that goes behind it. The same thing, I think, happens for, you know, non-corporate environments. It certainly happens in government environments. I think each area, each sector has maybe a different set of expectations for what a valid return is. But if you're going to put a whole bunch of money or a whole bunch of people's time, volunteer work, you know, your own personal passion, whatever it is that you're investing into something, I think it's a totally valid thing to say, is this in alignment with my own central goals? Is this going to actually meet what I'm after creating in the world? And how do I measure whether I actually did it before I go and invest all the time? Like, what do I look for at the end that tells me whether I actually hit the mark or not? So I guess what I kind of hear is, if there was some way in which, whether I'm government or I'm, you know, corporate, or I'm, you know, a community benefit leader of some kind, or I'm a consultant, if I'm going to ask one person to give the money and the other person to do the work, how do I effectively lead those two to have a conversation so that they can define what the outcome is in a consistent way and track progress? It doesn't have to be the same for everybody, but how do I have a set of tools, one place to go that says, here's the definition of the investment, here's the definition of what success looks like, and here's how the person doing the work can track their progress against those objectives, and the person giving the funding can see whether they got the ROI that they want. I like putting that look on your face.
You do that all the time. You do know that.
For the benefit of everybody else here, when we've had sessions with Troy, that there will be times when he just sort of goes off on this in this intellectual zone that's pretty much distills 2 hours of conversation into like 3 sentences. So thanks, Troy. Thank you. So that is the idea that this is non-denominational. Is really, really powerful in my mind. That because if our goal for creating the future is that we change the way people do things globally to bring out the best in each other, then it can't be in the community benefit sector, and it can't be in the business sector, and it can't be in the government sector. It has to be something that makes sense for everyone. And there can be variation.
I think one of the things I'm hearing you say is that it can't be about teaching one group to speak the other group's language. It's about having a center point that translates well into each group's language.
I do think though we have to do a little bit of research into what these different groups would want out of this and what would be useful to them, because you are used to speaking to and bringing people of certain subsets or certain of these groups together already, but not others, and you could come off as either heavy-handed or not as useful as you could be without doing a little bit of research, some interviews, some surveys of some of these folks to find out what they would really want and how this site could be engaging to them.
Right.
And what would bring them there too, because if they're not part of this community already, you could have the best content on earth, but they wouldn't know it's here.
Right. One of the internal conditions for success is that they need to be part of building it, and we'll absolutely be talking about a lot of that because it's huge. Where I'm playing right now is your sense, Troy, which is so dead on, that in just about all of these areas, whether it is community benefit, whether it is, we talk so often in the community benefit world about we're working with other people's money. Well, everybody's working with other people's money, and that's what you just made really, really clear. And so if part of this is the bringing together of people for common cause and having shared language that makes sense within their own realms, what can a website make possible for the folks in those influential positions for bridging that gap?
Well, I think what you said about it being a condition for success is that it's built by the groups that you're wanting to bring together in harmony is key. I could imagine, though, that if you sat down with, a corporate CEO or not just a person, but if you think about, a successful entrepreneur, a successful big business CEO or director or something like that, a foundation leader, a community benefit, chairperson or board member, or if you got a good, strong representative from each one of the areas, and then 10 good, strong representatives from each one of those areas over time that kind of add into the same conversation, and had this type of conversation about, hey, you know what? We think that there's a common thread of we're all working with somebody else's money. You call it the taxpayer's dollar, and you call it the foundation's money, and you call it the donor, but we're all taking somebody else's money, and those people want some kind of result. What's the right way to talk about that? What's the right thing to call it? you know? How do you track it? How do you track it? How do you give value back to your shareholder? How do you give value back to your donor? How do you make that measurable and demonstrable? Okay, now how do we create some sort of a common ground way of tracking that, and then we can figure out what to label each one of the different things in our tool. Then we can figure out how to create a translation dictionary, a lexicon, right? But let's figure out what's common and create some way of utilizing it that makes sense to each one of these groups. And then we can figure out how to talk about it in a way that's going to not alienate any of the groups. In fact, if I come in and say, you know, I work in the government sector, there's no reason why a web tool can't present all language to me in that language, you know? And if I come in from a community benefit sector, that I can get back the website in that language. Maybe that's the solution, or maybe it's an agnostic language that we need to come up with.
That's great. I'm envisioning sort of a Google Translate button. That
actually works.
It's not like my text.
Text messages on your phone?
Yeah, my text messages on my phone, but something that sort of like instantly translates the language based on the button you
I'm actually thinking it's in software and web software. There's a concept called localization, where depending on your browser settings, if you log into a website, it'll give you back the website in whatever language is appropriate to your region. So just by coming from Russia, you get it back in Russian. But it takes the software development to actually create each version of the content. So what I'm wondering is, if we had a similar concept, that there's kind of 3 or 4 different camps, each one of which has their own language, who we want to engage. You kind of tell the website when you arrive which camp you come from, and it'll put it in the language that's most accessible to you.
Wow.
Here's what sparked for me as you were talking, Troy, in terms of what the website can make possible. It can make possible the convening of that conversation across all sectors. So it can be a place where, okay, I'm just a chamber of commerce that deals with a lot of small businesses. I want something that just works for me and that's in my language, which I, by the way, love. Or I'm a Chamber of Commerce leader, and I realize that my role in the community is to speak the language to a whole bunch of different sectors that I'm not part of. I want to talk to other people that are also playing in that place. So the ability to talk with both, I mean, we've talked about crossing the positional barriers, but also to talk with peers in those positional places. But I love that thought of across all sectors. I'm a foundation CEO. I am a corporate CEO. I am a government leader in blah, 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 blah. And having those conversations about, we know we're all playing with other people's money, and we all talk about that. Whether it's shareholders' money, whether it's whomever's, what does that actually mean? I think it's a big point of pain for everybody.
You know, just quick aside, in language, in the power of language. I had a conversation last night with my son, and he works in the software world, and he's in sales. And they are reframing the eat your own dog food because of the connotation that it has. And for folks who are not in it, it's basically use your own products. And they've reframed it to drink your own champagne. So that has a very different connotation. So the language that we use to identify, even within these sectors, what people are looking for is really powerful as to how people feel when they start engaging in this.
It seems to me.
You brought up language. Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead, Marlene.
Go ahead, Marlene.
Because you brought up language, Dimitri, and what I've been thinking about from my role as a consultant and thinking about the other sectors everyone is mentioning, and appealing, what is the common ground that appeals to everyone, that makes them want to work across sectors or forget their roles and just tap into the abundance that is out there, is are two things. One, I really believe, and I think everyone here really believes, that we all have something to offer. Like, everybody has something to offer, and a lot of people think, I don't have something to offer in this case or in that case, and they probably do. We all have something to offer, and you or we are appealing to people, which is hopefully everybody, but that we want to make the world a better place. That as individuals in all of those different places, we all have something to offer, and we want to make the world a better place. So that, I guess I'm kind of thinking about messaging. Maybe I'm jumping way too far ahead, but I'm just thinking about the idea that what this site makes possible is tells us that there is a place to go where we can all give what we have to make the world a better place. Mm-hmm. Whether it's money, or whether it's expertise, or whether it's our ability to connect people, that this site, I understand what it is, because it's a place where all kinds of different people are coming together to make the world a better place. Not with separate missions, but with that connected mission.
It's interesting.
And it's that abundance idea.
When you talk about that, you make me think about, like, websites like Start Some Good, or those kinds of things, where you've got a person who can put up a video and talk about together, and in $5 or $50 increments fund a project. What I think I've always thought, or maybe this conversation is making me realize, one of the things that is missing from that model is it's extremely transactional. Mm-hmm. So yeah. I'm purchasing a reward from having funded, and if I meet some threshold, I get a T-shirt instead of a whatever. But that makes it transactional instead of making it community benefit, instead of making it me bought in to what the mission of the people are and being able to be a part of it long term. I think you could do so much more if you actually said, here's what we're about. We're not going to give you the reward of some, little giveaway thing. What we're going to give you is the reward of being a part of us actually producing this, mm-hmm. whatever this thing is, whatever this event is, or this benefit that we want to generate, or product that we want to produce, or whatever else, right? Mm-hmm. But there's some way of being connected at the beginning, helping to group source the ideas and the measurabilities, and then also be connected all the way through the end, and having a reward of seeing the thing that you funded come to life.
Mm-hmm. And it seems to me that the way to do that is to be respectful enough to meet people where they are from the very beginning. That this website actually is conscious of the starting point. That we aren't necessarily entering the stream halfway through. We are really going to start with people at the beginning and let it be built and grow incrementally. Recognize that it's going to evolve, that we want it to evolve, that's part of the learning lab of the website, is that it's going to evolve as people get to know each other, as their language evolves, as their sense of being beyond, their sense of transformation grows together.
I really want to echo that point, Gail. I totally agree, and I'd love for us to think about, as we create the website, a bit of, not so much the jargony minimum viable product, but sort of what's that level we need to get to where then we can all start building together. So instead of reaching for the aspirational, think about where's the point then that we can sort of, okay, this becomes a site and then it grows and then we'll see where it goes.
I'm also very conscious, because I'm already conscious of who is coming to the site for various purposes, and not getting what they need. Filling out the contact form and saying, where is the thing I need? So what it makes possible for us is not having to deal with that. The site actually will tell them what they want. It really is along that continuum of, there's folks who want tools. I need a form that will do X. There's folks that are curious about really starting to learn different ways. I am really resonating with this thing about bringing out the best in the people around me and the situations around me. I want to know ways that I can do that. I'm not necessarily looking for a form or a tip or a tool, but I want to learn more about how I can do things differently. There's folks who come to the site who are like, oh my God, I can't believe I found you. this is exactly what I've been saying, and nobody's been listening to me forever and ever and ever. And what can I do? I just want to be part of whatever this is. And I'll share with you guys that runs the gamut. I get that. We get that in the community benefit world. We get that from government employees. We get that from all levels throughout corporations. We get it from folks who are leading divisions in a corporation. I've never had it from a corporate CEO, but I will also share with you that when I talk about this in keynotes, those are the people who come up to me afterwards, are the folks who are in fairly significant positions within corporations. They're in the room because a nonprofit group has brought them in as a board member to listen to me, and the thing they tell me every single time is, I need you in my company. And so it's really that range of what people are seeking. We can make all of that possible for them, to meet them where they are with what they think they need, and to help open the door as I love the land and expand model, to open the door to what's next for them in their own growth of bringing out the best in other people. Because when it's about changing the world, again, that's a language thing that'll turn off a lot of people. But there's nobody that doesn't want to bring out, well, there's a lot of people that don't want to bring out the best in others, but they're not who we're talking to. But if we're talking in a language that resonates across, which is bringing out the best in other people and bringing out the best in situations, then what struck me, Troy, when you were talking before about the transactional versus people connecting, is that they have a different place, a different on-ramp to connect to sort of a movement for bringing out the best in people and situations. And that's just, and it's across, but it's occurring to me as you guys are talking that it really requires that spectrum of knowing that people will be looking for different things, Hildy, and get different things out of it.
You frequently say, and this is sort of a mantra that I try to integrate into what I'm doing, which is, it's not about the thing, it's about the people. And I wanted to add a corollary to that. It's not about the position, it's about the person. So when somebody comes in with a position being, I'm the CEO of X, or I'm the foundation leader of Y, or I run this organization, or I'm the banker, or whatever, it's really about talking to them as individuals, and not just the position that the hat that they're wearing. And that allows them to integrate. A safe space is not a safe space for the company; it's a safe space for them. To come in and have this conversation.
Yep. Because it's an individual who's clicking.
Right. It's a person who's doing it. So this is a website for people and their engagement with each other, and then obviously the language that you use is based on the language that they speak. So if they're in Foundation world, they're speaking Foundation.
The universal translator.
The universal translator, right? What do they call it in Hitchhiker's Guide? The Babelfish. It's the Babelfish. Stick it in your ear and you'll know whatever anybody's saying.
So, I'm hearing that there's 3 different reasons why you're experiencing people come to your website currently. And perhaps that those are things that we can better serve. Maybe there's more, but those are things we can better serve through a website that does more in the future. There are some people who come to learn, some people who come to do, and some people who come to teach. So you have some people who hear your message and think, man, that sounds really cool. Where can I find out more? And what they're really looking for is maybe content, connections, conversations to be a part of, articles, videos. They're looking for some sort of way to connect further with the message and with other people that also, give them more information. Some people are looking to do, so they're actively engaged in creating community benefit or making an investment or whatever else, and what they really want is some set of tools or structure by which they can utilize the thing that they've learned and put it in practice in a consistent, measurable way. They can track it, they can share it, they can make it meaningful. And then the third group is people who want to teach. They're consultants or they're leaders who are trying to instill this thought process with others, and they either need reference material that they can help to pass out that kind of says the thing they need to say, or they're wanting to actually contribute content, maybe to create videos or blog articles or recordings or whatever else, and contribute to the community in that way. What other reasons, what other roles are there why somebody shows up right now?
One of the places that I'm and I love this because we frequently work with continuums in our work as part of the framework that we use, and there's the doing piece, there's the learning piece, and between the doing and the learning, there's the practice. I'm sorry, between the learning and the teaching, there's the practice piece. A place where I can try on new things that I'm learning before I can teach it. I mean, one of the things we talk about frequently in the consultants immersion course, very specifically for consultants, is that, and I think that the same thing falls true for many leaders who are out there in their being, is that there is no place you can practice new ways of thinking and doing that doesn't count. That when we practice, it's always out in front of the people that we're supposed to be doing stuff with. And so there's a practice piece in there that I think is really important, where people just get to try stuff on.
So maybe those people would be looking for support or help. Yeah, as part of the community piece as well. I've read a lot of things and I've learned a lot of things, and now I'm doing it, and it's not going as well as I thought it would. Who's somebody I can talk to and ask, what would you do in this situation? Or what are some resources that I can look to kind of walk me through how to handle a scenario?
I want to be mindful of time here, and I want to ask you guys, in everything that we've been talking about here, is there anything, because we talked about some about corporate leaders, we talked a lot about social investors, is there anything that strikes you that we've been talking about that is not also applicable for business investors, capacity builders of all kinds, people within governments? Is there anything that doesn't fit that we've been talking about? And then on the flip side of that, are there things that people who are investing in a business, people who are in the capacity building realm, people who are working within government would want to get out of that it could make possible for them that we haven't talked about? So first, is there anything we've talked about that's not applicable to business investors, to capacity builders, etc.?
The only thing I can think of is transparency.
Talk more about that.
There are definitely things that government puts money into, or that a business, an individual business, puts money into, and those sorts of things that I guess they wouldn't want to have public, open discourse about and that sort of thing because it's private. But I don't know that it's not that the activity is not a fit. It's that the way of engaging with the activity might need to be more private than this kind of a forum.
Again, it's the meeting people where they are. Alex, before you leave, because he just dropped off. I was going to ask him for reflections before he left. I think a big piece of what you're talking about, Troy, is very similar to the language thing. Is understanding because everybody's got demands for transparency and openness. What does transparency and openness mean in your world versus another world? Peter, go ahead. You had something.
Well, I mean, this is a challenge that we faced at the Council, we faced at the Chronicle, and a lot of business publications face, is that these folks have something to lose by participating in these conversations, particularly professionally. So you have to set it up in a way where there's either, that they feel as though they're in a safe space, that things are not going to get twisted around on them, that the rules of engagement are such that it's not going to come back and cause damage to their organizations or their own careers. And I think the lack of discourse that happens in a lot of community-based sites is based on that in a lot of cases. So it's something that we really need to be mindful of, and I think it was a great point to bring up that we can't just throw the doors open and expect people to just want to openly participate if they don't feel like it's safe.
Right.
And given that often the social good interests and business interests are at odds with each other, that could be a real problem.
Mm-hmm.
And Alex is back.
Alex is back.
Just as I was closing the window, I heard you go, and Alex, wait, but... and I shut my laptop screen by the time I kicked into
I just wanted a quick reflection of what's standing out for you before you head out.
Great. I mean, a couple of things. I'm going to do some more thinking about this for sure after lots of good things. I think one thing that comes back is Gail's idea of how we create this as something that we kind of build on, what that level is that allows people to jump in and really, I don't know, kind of create the future of the Creating the Future website. I think that's a really interesting topic. So I'll think more about that. I also stick with Renji's comment around sort of the Y Combinator model and how we can, I don't know, really facilitate not just discussions, but really meaningful actions that come as a result. And I think part of it, reducing risk, making it a comfortable place. And then finally, how we bridge all of that with the idea of kind of meeting people where they are. So I think those are the three takeaways that I'll have, and then try to think about ways we can piece those three together in a good way.
Wonderful. Thank you for that.
And before you run, Alex, I want you to know that I've set additional dates and times, and I'll be in touch with you as we continue this conversation.
Great. Sorry to leave early. Thanks, everyone, for a good conversation.
Alex, thank you for being here.
Bye, Alex.
Bye.
I'm really loving the conversation about what a website, our website, as a place where we're talking about bringing out the best in people. Engaging that conversation about what transparency and openness means in settings that that are, by definition, competitive and feel that that transparency and openness goes completely counter to bringing out the best in what they need to do. And so in what can a site make possible in as you Troy and Peter, as you guys were talking about creating that safe space, I think engaging that conversation, because that's another pain point. They're all being faced with that. It's being thrown in everybody's, you need to be more transparent. Okay, what does that really mean in my context? And I know that Creating the Future as our internal practice has chosen to demonstrate the really far extreme of what it can be to be open. And that it's interesting, I've been having a conversation trying to post an article about what we've learned from this to Stanford Social Innovation Review. And every time I get edits back, I keep pulling the word should out. Because we're not saying anybody should do this. What we want to show is here's the end of what's possible. And the other end of what's possible is keeping your doors completely closed and saying, la, 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 we don't want to deal with this. To have the conversation of what could that look like in your industry, someplace between that extreme, I'm really excited about that. I mean, I think that's a huge both pain point and opportunity for opening the door to challenging some assumptions about, is that really true? Right. You know, we have to keep the walls all the way up to here. Well, maybe we only have to keep the walls up to here. Maybe there's some stuff that we can share that, because we've stopped talking to each other entirely, maybe there is stuff that we benefit when we actually share it with each other. I mean, I'm just sort of playing here, but I think that's key.
Mm-hmm.
It's interesting what you're saying about maybe there's some benefit. I guess when we talk about a business describing things in terms of its values, I think that's a huge part of what a marketing department is for. You know, and there's enormous value to a business who's clearly defined what their values are and what is important to them, etc. Being able to share that with their employees, being able to share it with the marketplace, to have value-based sales proposition, you know, to be able to create that. But at the same time, it's the specific projects, the specific investments, the specific work that they're doing in alignment with those values that maybe couldn't be public outside of the company. But you know, if a small business was asking for an investment from a venture capital firm, it absolutely is the kind of thing they would want to make transparent to the venture capital firm. So maybe I guess the sweet spot is control over that. That the website or the tool set is something that has sharing capacity. And on the one end of the spectrum, you can just leave everything open and transparent, including your board meetings, to the world. And we have the tools for that. And if that doesn't work for you, then which pieces do you want to share, and which pieces do you want to have shared only specifically with one person or not shared at all?
Interesting.
Well, one of the questions that you asked us to ponder was, what else might there be that we haven't thought of yet in the learn, do, teach, connect, etc. And I think part of the thing that we bring as a value is it's probably down the line, but it's something that, and people have varying degrees of consciousness of it, but I also believe that making meaning out of all of what we do is critically important to people. And there are things that we talk about here and in this space that might be professionally relevant, or hopefully are all professionally relevant, but we also find somewhere in the process that it's also personally, they're making meaning in a personal way, that it changes us as individuals as well as professionals. And I really feel like that calls then on us to think about this website as being a place and a space where we can be brave and bold together. So we can explore things that none of us are actually doing in our day-to-day work yet, but we are working our way or exploring our way into them. And then we take some time to reflect on what does that mean for us as individuals, as human beings. Which I think, when we talk about safe space, we're going to ask people what is it that makes the space safe for them, and what is it that makes you feel excited? And it's almost always because we've created a conversation that causes people to be bold in some way, whether it's public or private, but hopefully more public than private.
Well, and the other thing that I'm thinking about is that it absolutely can be the value of that being private. Can I be bold in my own life because of, I'm not ready to be bold publicly. I mean, there's, I confess flat out, I have no fear about a lot of stuff that most people are scared of. In part I was born that way, and in part 20 years of Zen meditation has helped. But I also acknowledge that not everybody is me, and that there are many people who are deeply learning from all of this stuff that Creating the Future is talking about openly, and they're learning about it only for themselves. They're not even ready yet to start asking a different question within their organizations. And that's amazing. That's wonderful. But I'm thinking that if this can be that portal, that on-ramp to the spectrum of stuff, from doing to learning to practice to teaching, from tools to community to being it myself, across sectors, and in language that resonates with people, and in approaches that resonate with people, where it's meeting you where you are with what you're ready for. I don't think we need to just focus on being brave and bold. I think we can pardon the term, I think we can focus also on sometimes you're scared shitless, and that's okay. Mm-hmm. Because we all are.
What's really interesting, this thought's not fully formed at this point, but the feeling is I'm getting a feeling of the next stage of what online presence means here with this website, like Web 3.0, that it's put together by the community. It addresses you for who you are. It brings out. It gives you opportunities within a safe environment. Mm-hmm. And some of the thoughts that go with this is, I'm old enough to go back to bulletin boards and watch the progression of online conversations, mm-hmm. or the sort of virtual world, and it's very heavily commercial in a lot of ways now. but we're talking about taking it to a different level and using these tools and ways of thinking, because it's just, bits across wires, basically, or the airwaves, and taking these tools and doing something really, it has the potential to do something really different, and yet can start with something really, I remember what the term that Troy used for the minimum starting point that is scalable, but with those values that we've been talking about today, and with the focusing it on people within all of these what we have created as sectors, environments, or whatever. Because again, it's my personal philosophy is we make it up as we go along. We've always made it up as we go along. Societies, cultures, nations, whatever. So we can make up something new anytime we want. And this is what this feels like at this point. So that's my reflection.
Yeah, I was going to say you dove right into reflections. What I'm going to ask you guys as you're thinking about this is to post comments into the blog post itself, because I know that I can pretty much count on all of you sparking something within the next several hours, or when you're in the shower, which is usually where I spark just about everything. And so if anything occurs to add to the conversation, I will be taking all of this and making it into something that's cogent and bullet pointed about what we believe that this site has the potential to accomplish for everybody that we want to engage. The next steps in this, and we've sort of already started, is to talk about the conditions that would need to be in place. Obviously, trust, safe space, meeting people where they are, language, etc. What are the conditions that this needs to create so that when we're talking about actions, those actions actually are directly aimed at creating those conditions. So that will be in our next conversation, which Dimitri will be inviting you guys to, which we hope some of you will be able to, I hope all of you will be able to join us for. But as we wrap up here, I can't believe, A, that this has gone so fast. That's just mind-blowing to me. What I'd like to do, and I won't call on you guys, just sort of pop out as it goes for you. What is standing out for you in this conversation? If you took some notes, what is something that you circled 3 times? What popped for you as we've been talking here?
I'd be happy to throw out a thought on this.
Yeah.
We eventually got to this place in this conversation where we had the great finding that a website or some kind of digital presence that met users where they were, for whom they are, something that's responsive to those needs, and something that helps individuals then have the tools to create their own web presence moving forward, or their own collaborations in a digital space moving forward. The funny and possibly ironic thing about this is really you came to this place of, today in this call we came to this place of, oh, we should just do what every smart, forward-thinking web developer is trying to do right now with their web presence, which is meet users where they are, for whom they are, give the users tools to create their own responsive and resilient web service, right? So basically we used these wonderful principles of creating the future to come back to the same thing that most sophisticated web developers are trying to think about doing with their projects anyhow, which is wonderful because this wasn't necessarily a call filled with technologists, although there are some on the call. But what I think we've done is we've stopped just short of saying, what does all this mean, though, specifically for the creating the future audience, and specifically for what they're looking to do when they come here. And we kind of got into it earlier at the start of the call. It was, I think we were right in that sweet spot, but then we came to a place where we were talking a lot about what I would think are just best practices for building a digital presence. It doesn't mean it's easy. It's going to be really hard, and it's a big challenge. But I feel like we came to this place of getting ready to now leap off the edge of the cliff and say, okay, what does all this mean now specifically for the members of this community?
I think I'll jump in really quickly and play off of that point a little bit, because I think that's what you want anymore when you're building a web presence, is to actually think about the end user and not about the builder. But what strikes me right now about the people who are engaged in the conversation is it doesn't really represent the audience that you're trying to reach. So I think you need to find some ways to get some of those folks into the conversation next time.
I'll talk to you, Peter, about your suggestion.
Okay, thanks.
Sounds
like I'm going to be doing that, huh?
You volunteered.
It strikes me that
Oh no.
Part of how do you get the feedback from the people that are actually your end users? The challenge that I've had many times is in looking at, I guess, a lot of companies, especially like startup companies or companies that have a new idea for a new product or a new website, don't have the community that they can actually get involved. They don't have the people that would be their end users to ask questions of. So I don't think that's an uncommon thing to have be the case. But I do think it's awesome, is this group of people who has a pretty clear definition for what those end users are, and who they might be, and the connections to reach out to them and to start drawing those people together, as well as the fact that it's representative. Those of us on the call, I think, do have representation amongst the group, even if it's not all of the end users fully represented. I've seen really successful software projects that start by saying two things. First thing is, we're going to get all of our feature list that we're going to build and the priority order from it from actually talking to users. The users get to tell us what to build, and we're going to build what they ask for. That's key. And the other half of it is to say we're going to use our own product as we build it, because that makes us the end users, and if it doesn't work for our needs, it doesn't work. I hear, at least from my perspective, it sounds like there's tools and techniques that this group would use in their internal businesses or in their conversations with clients or whatever else. If we build something that this group can use for our needs, and then naturally pull clients and our departments and our contacts and those kinds of things into using it with us, we'll naturally get the group of people that we're describing.
Yep.
It seems like the thing that I'm seeing as a theme across the board is the idea of making the website developmental, so that people can enter in wherever their comfort level is, as much as that is possible. But I also agree you have to talk to the end users to see that, because in my experience, a lot of the end users, child welfare, you have a lot of people who are doing really hard work and are somewhat wounded and maybe a little tainted after doing it for a long time, and they tend to be very quiet. What they say in public is very different from what they say in private, behind closed doors. And so, again, that comes down to relationship building, right? So how do you make a website approachable? How do you ignite hope in folks that maybe are younger and at the beginning of their career as leaders? And how do you reignite hope in people who have been in the field a long time but so crave to feel that feeling again? We can do this. We can do this together. Because I've seen so many people enter the field full of color and joy and kind of leave with shades of gray. And feeling very, and yet they had so much to give, but they couldn't find their community, and this could be that community that maintains the thought form of hope, forward movement, change. If it's not possible, then it's possible, which I love, and so I think what do we want the first thing to be? What's the experience or the feeling you want them to have when they first arrive for everybody, besides safety? I think that's very important, and meeting people where they are.
Well, much of what I wanted to say has been said, so I'm just going to add that I did circle something twice, not 3 times, so I wrote it down one more time and circled it right here, but it was abundance and enoughness, and that idea that this site could be a place for anyone who visits it to tap into that or find it or connect to it, that there is enough. We just need to find each other and find it and figure out how to tap into our own. I'll leave it at that.
Renji, how about you?
The one thing that I've just been thinking about as I've just been listening to everybody talk is how do we get more people into conversations like this? Because I'm just blown away that you're able to convene people from different parts of the world, different backgrounds, all with the same vision and purpose. And how do we create many more of these conversations? How do we facilitate many more of these gatherings? How do we facilitate more of these, cross-pollination of ideas? And there's a lot to think about. And I think, everything that I wanted to say, again, what Marlene was saying has been said, but I think creating the future's role in all of this is really acting as convener and helping people find not each other. I mean, not just each other, but also the resources that they need, right? So, yeah, how do we create many more of these conversations?
Gail?
There's so many pieces of this conversation today that I'll be thinking about for a good long time. And what's really sticking for me at this moment that I want to say is how much I appreciate and value the time and the effort that everyone has put into contributing today, looking forward to the next discussions. I really have a strong feeling that the more we connect to the real people that are involved in whatever it ends up that we build, the more real it will be, the more valuable it will be, the more practical it will be.
And you, Mr. Petropoulos?
Kind of concur that a lot has already been said that I was thinking about without my initial sort of imagining of what this could be. I do value the idea that this can be something for everyone, and it's easy to say that, but I think that with the technology, it can happen. And I also like the idea that Troy was saying, and I've really been thinking about it, is how do you create the tools? How do you create the methodologies, the frameworks, in a way that is very accessible and in the language of the individual who is looking at it? So that's something that's really stuck with me in this conversation, is how to do that, and the importance of it.
Yeah. A couple of things popping for me. One is the continuum of where people are at, what are they looking for. That's really resonating with me. One of the things I circled in red was that everybody all the time is in a position where one person is providing the funds and one person is doing the work. And in a transactional world that has been built around transaction, that actually is creating the positions that we see each other in. And what does that mean in terms of how do we bring out the best in situation and each other when we've built all of our constructs around this idea that I either give the money or I make something happen. And that's just powerful for me, not necessarily for the website, but just it's just a powerful thought for me. A couple of things that also popped for me. One, you guys are the end users, so let's just start with that. So I'm sort of smiling, saying we need to get the end users at the table. You guys are the end users. So there is that. There are more end users. There are groups that are not represented, but I just sort of wanted to say that. And the various groups with whom you interact are also the end users. But the other thing that really struck me, and especially as you guys are sharing in the end here, is that, again, the reason we do these meetings openly is to model that this is where everybody starts. Everybody starts with 3 board members sitting in a room, or 3 guys sitting in a division of a company that say, our website sucks and we need to do something about it, and we should go out and have beers. And that is where these conversations always start. And so, and they always get to the point. I mean, I have never been in one, Peter, in the 15 years 18 years since we developed this framework, I've never been in a conversation where the first action out of it is we don't have everybody in the room. I've never, I mean, that is always, which is fabulous, which it makes it organic where people want to say, because frequently what happens is, nah, we're not ready for that, or we don't need that, and what always comes out of these conversations is, okay, who else do we need to get in the room, which is perfect, and it happens organically, and it feels good, and it feels energized. So, so just the ability to model that, and to say, this is where people start, and this is how you can start such a conversation to get to that next conversation of, okay, what conditions do we want this website to create for folks? What does it need to be? And so that's mine. I'm always energized by that. So thank you guys.
I think Gail has her hand.
Gail has her hand. Yes,
I just want to say one word in departing that maybe we'll start with the next time, which is, what would it take for us to find the joy, or to keep the joy in this work and make it like play?
Mm-hmm.
That's great. That's great.
Yeah.
That's great.
Very, very grateful to all of you from all realms, with all dogs barking in the background.
I know, I love it.
It's been a wonderful, wonderful way to start our day, and I'm looking forward to what's next. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good to see you.
Inviting us.
The website.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
For our next class or our next session. And don't forget to comment as you watch this on the blog post, so that we can incorporate your ideas in the future. So thank you, everyone.
Thanks, guys.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.